started working in Catton Grove due to some funding from Norwich Town Close a couple of years ago, and I spoke to Fiona on the phone when we got the funding, and she was really keen that we did food discovery here. My colleague Rosalind has been delivering that with Year 5 last year and Year 3 this year, so it's a year-long programme working with children, cooking, growing, taking them on farm visits, doing markets, really enabling children to understand the story of food and where they fit into that story of food. And when I was talking to Fiona about it, she said, oh, would you do some work with parents? Because I'm doing some work with a parent group, and I think the sort of thing that you're talking about will really fit into that. So Rosalind's been doing some work with these parents. The more I found out about what Catton Grove was doing here with the parents, the more I wanted to be able to share it, because I think it's very, very special, and I think the parents who are going to be talking this afternoon, you will understand from them how special it is.
I'm in my 18th year here at Catton Grove Primary. You kind of come and you never want to leave because it's such a lovely place to work. So how did life skills begin? So the idea came from, as I've explained, I run quite a lot of parenting courses, and in those parenting courses I run like the Webster Stratton, I run the Speakeasy, but all those courses were around the children and the needs of the family's children. But over time, the Webster Stratton runs for 14 weeks. I noticed that the parents, once they opened up, there was a real gap here, that they really looked forward to coming out to these groups each week. And when the group finished, there was nothing. They went back in, they felt isolated and lonely again, and they didn't have the confidence to come out. And they were almost hiding behind their children and their children's needs. So again, I thought, right, I think maybe there's a gap to do something with the parents. So I came up with this idea of the life skills. And because I'm also a parent support advisor, and as I've explained, I do a lot of going with parents to sort out housing, and benefits is a huge issue, as we know. Family circumstances change, the families are then struggling because they have to wait until they get their money back. And I just felt that they hadn't perhaps had the opportunities that I had had in life with my parents, you know, my own personal parents, and things that we perhaps just take for granted. So I approached a few of our parents, and here they are. And I would say it's been one of the most successful and rewarding things that I've ever done. So how do I know which parents? You know, how do I know which parents to approach? So a lot of the time, like I said, I've been here a long time, I've built relationships, I know these parents. Also, some of the families, we have quite a few difficulties with attendance, which I'm sure probably lots of people have. And some of that can be down to the parents and their own mental health. Maybe, you know, we have parents who've got bipolar or depression and they can't come out, which then means they don't bring their children into school because they don't have confidence. Some parents can be in the child protection arena, or in the family support process, and through that we realise that actually these parents do want to make changes, they do want help, but they just are so beaten down with everything, they just don't have the confidence to come forward and say, do you know what, I need help. How do I promote the course? I found, apart from having relationships over the years with them and knowing the families well, I think sometimes I invite parents in and I talk about my own experiences. I don't go into great detail, I hope, but I think they then understand that actually I do understand what they're going through, and they feel more comfortable that I'm not judging them. I make sure that I make regular contact, and I am aware when you don't see a parent for a while, I will just make a telephone conversation. Or I will just pop round. I would just let them know I'm coming, you know, and if they decide they don't want me to come into their house, they don't have to have me in. But I think sometimes they're really appreciative that somebody's actually noticed and cared enough that you know, that they've knocked on the door or they've done something. As I say, if they don't want me there, they can tell me to go away. With regard to the size of the group, you've got parents who obviously have got low self-esteem, confidence issues, anxiety. And these parents here today don't mind me sharing this, obviously. So the last thing they want to do is to come into some massive group and feel completely overwhelmed. So we tend to work with between 4 and 6 in a group. The course runs for 20 weeks. The sessions we run from literally after the children are dropped at school until 11:30. particularly because we're doing a lot of cooking, and so we need to allow time, and within that we do a lot of tasting of the food as well, what they've cooked. We share food, and they make enough food to take home as well, which I think is really, really important. What happens during those sessions is we always start with refreshments, a nice cup of tea, and everybody just has a little chat, and then we kind of then all get on and do what we're going to do together, whether it's working in a group, whether we're doing cooking, whatever our activities or whatever we're planning. So initially I started with, we looked at budgets, we looked at how they budget their money, because they locally admit many of our families really, really struggle with budgeting their money. They get this amount of money, it comes once a fortnight. They can go out, they'll do the shop, think they've got everything, and as we know, children will eat more than they should, and then you get to that second week and you're really, really struggling. So we looked at various ways of how we could save money, looking at the budgets. The first two things are kind of even just understanding about bank accounts, about even knowing things like VAT and where all this money, what it all means. And I've actually taken some of that was from the Barclays Bank Life Skills, and the course is designed to be used in high schools. I don't know if anybody in a high school, if it's something that they've used, but again, it was very much, it's not for young children, and it works perfectly well with the adults, and it was a really useful thing to do, to re-look at how the budgets went. So we went away and we looked, and we came back together and sort of addressed things, and it was all those forgotten things, we suddenly realised we'd done this amazing budget, and we had all this money, and then we remembered that we had a pet, and we remembered that actually we've got a couple of pets, and they need to go to the vets, and they need to, and you've got dog food, and all those extras which are so easy to forget about. So it was good to actually go over, the budgeting side of things. So here we've got, obviously, this is our first one where our men are all getting on with their budgeting. I am also very aware, that not everybody can read and write, and they were very supportive to each other, but they felt comfortable enough. When I spoke to them prior to starting the course, I wanted them to feel comfortable, so I would meet and say to them if they wanted somebody to sit alongside. You see here, we've got here Zara and Steve who are here today. Now Zara and Steve were both on separate courses. Zara was one of my first in our group, and she gained so much confidence and was so amazing. She now comes along and supports the other parents in the group, which is absolutely fantastic. And she's been a real asset to the men. I think she's really helped them. So it's about making everybody feel comfortable. So, who do we work with outside? Obviously Food Discovery, you've been a huge impact on us, not only because of the healthy food that you brought in, but also even helping them using the plate, where we looked at the different sort of foods and what we should have for a balanced diet. Because again, many of them weren't cooking, they're on budget, they think that they can only, if they don't feel confident in their cooking, you were going to the freezer department and buying all the frozen foods and things because you think they're cheap. But when you're feeding a family, it can work out quite expensive. So the fact that Ross could come in and say, well, this is what you need, and then for us to work out, where to get this produce from. And I think another important thing was the food tasting, because many of them had never even tasted lots of the vegetables. So for them it was really, they thought, right, we'll give it a go, and it became quite good fun, didn't it? The job centre was something else. Families have a lot of pressure put on them to get back to work, and what do they have to do? They're anxious, they're worried, and they're expected to go into the city, go into the job centre, into an area where you can at times feel quite intimidated, and feel really frightened about going in there, and it can be a huge thing. So I approached the job centre and explained that I ran this group, and I managed to get somebody to come out and talk to our ladies. So he did all the careers advice with the group, and again we had got what we wanted. I'd asked the ladies to think about what they wanted to ask, and from that they then felt confident enough. I think some of you did go down and have one-to-one appointments, because they then had a face that they could go and see. They knew exactly what they needed to do, or they needed to, I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to spoil what they're going to tell you. The box is a community project here in Old Catton, and I'm sure we've got Mile Cross here, they know about the box. And the box is where you can go, and there's people there, volunteers, who will help sort out benefits. There's so many things. They can tell them about courses running locally. They can tell them to get, you know, where the further education. There's so many things that they can help, form filling. So it's a really positive thing. Sure Start, which fortunately is next door to us, again have really helped with when families are short and they haven't got those white goods and things go wrong, you know, and that they need new furnishings. We go to them, and Sure Start have been able to give budgets, you know, they've given money and they've actually bought the things for them. So they're a really good link for us. And just because your children are older, that doesn't mean, you know, I think lots of you thought that they still had to be like babies to be able to access this. So that's been a really positive thing. And Sure Start very much as well are into the whole healthy eating. So they were very much on board as well. They've been very interested.
My name is Steph, and I have 4 children, one of which is still at this school. I have suffered with my mental health for many years, and this has had a huge negative impact on me and my children. When I was first asked to come and do the life skills group, I wasn't sure whether to say yes, as I wasn't confident around other people, and due to past and personal circumstances, I didn't feel comfortable being in a group. I agreed to come as I wanted to get out of the house and wanted to make friends and start living again, and not just existing from day to day. And sometimes when I was at my lowest point, it would be hour to hour. I'll never forget the first session. I felt really sick, anxious, but I trusted Mrs. Sadler, and I knew she would not put me in a situation that would make me feel worse. Mrs. Sadler had made telephone contact with each of us prior to the course to reassure us, and I think it really helped me. I was a mess when I started. I didn't want to see people. I didn't care about myself, my appearance, or even my life. I felt I had no purpose. I was unable to be anywhere where there might be men. I also had just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and was advised to lose weight. However, at this point, didn't care, and I thought it was just another put down. My life has completely changed. During the course, it gave me confidence and raised my self-esteem higher than I could ever hoped for, which has enabled me to take control of my life. Here comes the best bit. I have lost 4.5 stone today. Thank you. I have done this on my own through changing my diet and cooking proper meals for myself and picking a healthier diet. I get weighed once a month at my local doctor's surgery, as I know the scales are accurate. You like this bit, didn't you? I have not been to the dentist for 4.5 years, and I had very few of my own teeth left. I have now been and had lots of treatment, and as you can see, I have nice bright shiny teeth. I now take pride in myself, and it feels good to be able to smile again. I'm able to go shopping on my own. I can chat to strangers, male or female, when I'm out and about. My children are happier and more confident because I am. We have fun together, and I now have a strong relationship with my children. I really enjoyed the cooking sessions, and I have been able to use the recipes at home cooking with my children. I have overcome fear of knives, the cooker, and overcome so many other fears that were holding me back. The Life Skills group gave me something to look forward to each week. It gave me a purpose to get up. I loved every part of the course, and I made some really great friends, and we still continue to support each other. Life for me is really good, and I have learnt how to laugh again. The Life Skills course, I believe, saved my life.
See, this is Steve, and he's the dad of 2 children, a girl aged 15 and a boy aged 11. Their mother Penny was an alcoholic and had a lot of mental health problems throughout her life. Steve was her carer for many years and was stuck indoors a lot of the time. He only really left the home to take the children to and from school and to do a bit of shopping. Sadly, Penny died unexpectedly 18 months ago, and it turned his life and the children's upside down. It was like starting over. Steve felt very lonely and isolated at times. He says he still does. So when I made contact with him and gave him the opportunity to come along to the Life Skills group, it couldn't have come at a better time for him, and he said he jumped at it. He was nervous first of all, but once he got to meet the other dads, it got much easier. He did recognise some of their faces as he had passed them in the playground, but none of them had ever spoken to each other. He wanted to come to the group because it got me out of the house, he said. All I would do was sit indoors each day looking at four walls. I had no motivation to do anything and only got up each day for the sake of the children. As a dad, I felt embarrassed as I always kept myself to myself, and this was due to being Penny's carer and not having the opportunity to mix or meet with others. I didn't have any confidence to go anywhere or even find out about anything. The group has helped me in so many ways. I've learned to budget better, and I know how to plan and cook low-cost meals for me and the kids. I've even learned how to bake cakes. When Penny was alive, she used to do all the cooking. We had an old-fashioned relationship where she did the cooking and I did the men's jobs. In my day, boys didn't have the chance to learn to cook at school. I know my children are really proud of me, particularly when I bring my cooking home to share with them. It gives my kids the confidence to cook, especially my daughter. The Life Skills group is a relaxed atmosphere where I feel I can be myself and have a laugh with the other men. It's been such a long time since I could just be me, as for many years I was a dad and carer to Penny. I appreciate being given the chance to be part of the group, as it sometimes seems easier for mums as there's not so much more out there for them. I now speak to more people and I feel confident to start a conversation with people I don't know. I speak to anyone and everyone. I will always be dad to my children, but I found myself again, which has made me and my children happy.
So we've been doing cooking together, and obviously cooking is cooking, but it's also, food is so much more, and it's so much kind of, it's culture and it's social and it's about caring for yourself and all these different elements, which is why I think it's such a nice way of sort of accessing and bringing people together. So we do, in the sessions we, on a sort of practical level, we make really recipes that are relatively quick and easy and child friendly and sort of accessible. As we've spoken about before, some people are less confident with reading and writing, so I've got a variety of different things. So I've got a picture cookbook which I use with the children as well, and it's really nice recipes which we've used a few of. One of the pictures was the hungry enchiladas, so we've been using that, and then also going through the basics of what a nutritious diet is. So we look at the Eat Well plate, which I think we're now all pretty familiar with. And then also linking to, as well as the basics of a nutritious diet, also looking at the importance of why we'd eat potentially more local food or more seasonal food. So I've got lots of pretty little, this talks all about seasonality, what's seasonal, and then this complements the Eat Well plate with sort of all the different nutrients you get from different produce. So when we look at the recipes, we look at where the different food things fit within these two, and we always try to make seasonal foods. And we do focus on, it's obviously plant-based, and we focus on savoury, but we have made a few sweet things as well. There was we made Eccles cakes. There was a request to make Eccles cakes, so we made Eccles cakes one week. So we also, in addition to the actual practicalities of cooking, we also look at what are the different barriers to why people might not be able to eat so well, whether that's kind of lack of time or money, or not having proper equipment in the kitchen, or not having the confidence or the experience around cooking. So going through all those different issues and trying to figure out how we can overcome some of those. Then we've also, as in the beginning, I tended to bring a recipe and all the ingredients, and we'd cook that together. As the weeks went on, we kind of looked at either recipes from books or things that people had seen or heard that we sort of chose what we wanted to cook together. We also looked to sort of complement some of Fiona's work. We looked at the budgeting, so looking at a recipe, how much it costs per portion. We also talked about shopping and how we go about shopping and what's even practical things like, so if you go shopping, maybe you start with buying proteins, which tend to be more expensive, and then you go on to the cheaper things, and strategies for cooking and eating well. We looked at meal planning and trying to think about how we go about creating meal plans for the week, and maybe cooking in bulk and then distributing into smaller amounts that made it more easier, so you spend potentially a slightly longer time initially preparing one meal and then you have it more throughout the week.
We're happy to fund this because we believe strongly that it provides a vehicle for parents to be much more involved in the life of the school in a very, very practical way. It also provides opportunities for them to develop skills, and that has a big impact in terms of the way that they approach their kids and what they can do in the home environment that they couldn't do or felt less confident in doing before the course started. And it's not the only thing that we do. It's one of a number of measures that we put in place to provide opportunities for families. And now that means that what you do is you create opportunities for families to engage in the school in a variety of different ways.
My name is Zara Metcalf. I have children ranging from 2 years to 13. I didn't have a happy experience at high school due to being bullied and later a bad relationship from my older two's father. It was not a positive one. He was controlling and put me down, which made me believe that I was worthless. When I first asked to come to belong to the group, I said yes straight away. However, once I started to think about it, I felt nervous and apprehensive and worried about meeting new people. I decided to attend the group. As hard as it was going to be, I knew I wanted to make the changes in my life. So initially I got myself worked up before I even walked into the room for the first session. We were all quite quiet, but I started to feel relieved as it did not take me long to realise that all the other ladies felt exactly the same way. It has benefited me so much. My confidence has grown and I have become more independent and able to make decisions without worrying about the outcome or being judged. I no longer feel socially isolated. I have found the old me again, and I'm not just a mum and somebody's partner, I'm actually a person. I now have friends, and I know that I'm a good friend to the others. I've been bringing my daughters to Catton Grove for the past 7 years, feeling lonely and isolated, as I just went through the motions and the daily routines of ensuring my children were at school. I never spoke to anyone, although I did access pastoral support to help me with my children, but that was not around me, that was always around my children's needs, which I felt was more of a priority than me because I didn't matter. I now have a plan in place for me to have a career in the future. I have made contact with Wensum Lodge through the man that came and saw us from the job centre. I have all the information for the courses that I need to go on to gain the qualification to do the job that I didn't think I'd ever be able to do because I didn't believe in myself. The biggest impact on my children is having a happier mum who feels more assertive and confident. I now socialise with other people outside of the house, which means that my children now socialise with other children and other adults as well. I have gained confidence and it's made a huge difference to not just me, but my children, but also my long-term partner. Our relationship is completely different, as he says that I'm a completely different person, but in a good way. We have always spoken about getting married, but I never wanted to. I did, but I didn't want to because I didn't want the attention to ever be on me. Whereas now we are actually planning to get married next year and all the steps are in place because I can handle having it all on me.